This is the Education Business Podcast for consultants and business owners providing services in schools. I'm Claire Riley, and I'll be sharing how to start, grow and scale your education business. Today we're talking about planning for 2023. So last year I did a podcast on planning for 2022, and you might find it helpful to go back and listen to that episode. It's number 31. But by this point last year, I had some firm plans for 2022, whereas this year I'm still thinking about what my 2023 intentions and goals will look like. And I just wanted to let you in on that because I want you to know that all the ways are normal. Sometimes we think that other people are perfect and they always have it all together, but I don't necessarily do it the same way every year. I just know that I need to do it in a way that feels right, where it's not too easy. But I've reflected on why I had firm plans last year, but I don't have firm plans this year yet. And I actually think it's because there was a more profound change needed last year. And that change was mainly needed in myself. It was personal development more than anything. Whereas this year, going into 2023, I'm just building on what I've been doing in 2022. And I've already got a good idea of how those intentions will progress. I just haven't put pen to paper yet. And you'll know that we do 2-to-1 mentoring, and a lot of clients ask, how do you stick to a plan? Because they find it hard to stick to plans. And truth is, I don't always stick to a plan. Things change. I struggle with sticking to a plan, particularly from the ADHD side of things. But I think everyone struggles with it, if I'm honest. One thing that I will say is I struggle to stick to the plan, particularly when you can't see it all of the time, because out of sight, out of mind, and I like things to be digital, so that can be tricky. What is helpful is when I look at what I did do and I didn't do, especially if I haven't been looking at it that often, it shows me where I'm putting my focus, and that is helpful because it gives me an idea of what I really care about as well and what I need to work more on. So, things also change throughout the year. Different opportunities present themselves just as they will for you as well. It happens to me. And you've got to decide then in that moment, well, sometimes it's not a moment, is it? But in that time frame, whether or not it's something that you want to pursue further. So a good example of this is that I didn't have networking at a higher level on my 2022 list. But what I did have was being a more confident leader. And that's where that intention actually led me, which you probably wouldn't sort of put 2 and 2 together and make 4 there. But it actually led me to network at a higher level. And that's going to be more of a thing as I enter 2023. So meeting other people at different levels that are above me or at the same level as me has really helped me to see that I play down my success, and that's not good for me or the team. And that's given me a lot more confidence just to know that other people might have had the same struggles as me, or might still be going through some of those struggles, or that I've put things in place over the last 18 months, not knowing whether it was the right thing to do, and hear that other people have done that and seen success. It gives you confidence, really. And so I wouldn't necessarily put those two things together, but that's how things have panned out. And it's important to know that, really, as I continue on this episode. So before I wrote this episode, I looked over my goals for 2022 and I highlighted what I think I've achieved. And then this gives me the opportunity to analyse what I've not achieved and have a think about it. So last December, and if you listen to the episode, you'll probably hear it in there, but I planned out what I wanted to be, or who I wanted to be, what I wanted to do, and what I wanted to have. Now, when I look at the do section, where I'm physically doing something, getting something done, I've done a lot. Not everything, but I've done quite a lot. The have section, that's the most lacking. And so I did have to ask myself some questions on that, and I would recommend you do that. And one of the big themes for me in 2022 has been how much I actually value myself. And so I had to ask, is this linked to how much I value myself? I've had this massive learning piece on how I'm valuing myself and whether or not I believe I'm enough. And I know that my have section, which probably is not going to change much moving in 2023 because I still want those things, I do know that it's already in motion now, much more than it was last year. And I just have this feeling it's going to significantly improve soon based on the work that I've been putting in. Obviously, when I started 2022, I didn't actually know what the problem was there, whereas it's kind of been revealed to me throughout the year that this is like a worthiness and enoughness thing that I'm working really hard on now. So I think the main thing is to be aware that you're on a journey and be aware of the journey, check in on the journey with what you're learning and make sure that you're making progress forward in the right direction. But you don't always know how things are going to pan out or what you really need to learn. And I think that's normal. It can be really hard to sit down and plan it and know all of the steps. Sometimes you don't. You just need to wait for the next step to reveal itself. And that certainly happened for me over the last year. I've had the intentions, but I've not necessarily known how that will come about. But I've definitely moved forward. So there were changes that I wanted to see at Classroom Secrets as well. A laying of a new foundation, if you will. And I wasn't really sure how that would happen, to be honest. But now I can see, even though I don't feel like we're where I want to be yet, we have laid foundations, but foundations I didn't even know we needed. But now I can see how my intentions are actually going to come about. Does that make sense? Sometimes we just don't know how. We just have to move forward with the intention, doing the right things. And sometimes we think it's this small task and it ends up being this huge thing with all sorts of smaller tasks. But it doesn't feel like that because you just do one thing at a time. But then when you look back on the whole year and you think, oh gosh, wow, we did a lot of work to get to this point. And now I can see how this intention that I had is going to come to fruition, basically. So when you're planning out what your intentions are going to be for 2023, really think about not just what you want, but what you want your life to be like and how are you going to operate in that life. So for me, life-work balance is huge. And it's not that I don't get lots of work done. And it's not that I don't obsess about work either, because I'm an entrepreneur after all. But I do it in a manageable way that works for me. And I incorporate other things that are important, like learning and family time and days out and the like. So as you reflect, think about as well what you've learned in the past year. What will you not do again? What are you going to improve upon? What do you need to do more of? Are the key events that you need to plan in? So I'm going to take the whole of December off in 2023. I haven't told the team yet, actually. But it's part of my transition from founder to owner investor. And so, no, that's not right, is it? It's part of my transition from CEO to founder stroke owner investor. That makes sense. But I need to put in the calendar now, basically, even though that's 12 months away, so that I can be working towards it. And there'll be lots of little things that happen along the way where I'm thinking, hang on, I need to do X, Y, and Z, or make sure the team know how to do whatever, so I can have that month off. And it's not just because I'm like, right, I'm going to have a month off. It's, if you don't, when will you transition out of being needed if you don't put these steps in place, basically? You've got to do these things, even if it's uncomfortable. I would say it's probably easier for me to just go, yeah, okay, I'm going to take that month than it is for Ed, because he just likes to be involved more. And I think I've got over it a bit more, I suppose, because I'm a bit further on in the journey of that. But anyway, what are you going to plan in? What do you need to plan in that you want to make happen? So a good example of this that we did a couple of years ago was I decided, okay, I'm only going to work 4 days when we get to September. So it gave me plenty of time to be able to work up to it. And, now's the time to keep that in mind as you move forward so that you can make that happen. So what are the takeaways from this episode then when it comes to planning out 2023 and how you're going to be successful and what you want to have, what you want to do, and who you want to be? Well, I think the first one is to set intentions rather than goals and move towards them, even if you don't know the steps, even if each step has to reveal itself along the way. The most important thing is to just not do nothing, because, you don't know what to do necessarily, but if you do something, I think it will reveal itself, because you get momentum in that as well. You can't necessarily plan it out all now, can you? Secondly, ask yourself questions. And sometimes it's difficult to do this. You kind of have to coach yourself, but ask yourself questions why you have or you haven't achieved what you wanted to achieve. For example, if I'd have achieved everything, I would ask myself the question, was it too easy? And I would say the answer is yes. I should have reviewed it earlier. So it's not just about quizzing yourself on the negatives, not achieving things. It's being really honest with yourself and really asking, why is that? And I suppose asking in a deeper level as well. So for me, it's I've got to ask if it's linked to my enoughness. Would I have asked that a couple of years ago when I didn't know as much about personal development? Well, probably not. So thinking about some real deep reasons of why you might have chosen to focus on one or more of the areas and not others. So yeah, really, really think about that. And that will help you know as well what kind of personal development intention you need to set as well. And the third one is to give yourself real time to do this, so that you can do it well. And for me, I like to set time aside. So this year I'll probably put time aside in between Christmas and New Year. I just have the feeling that that's the best time for me to do it this year, so I'm going to do that. But I'll know in my mind that it's coming up, and so I'll be thinking about it. I don't know, when I'm doing boring stuff like the dishwasher, when I like to think, and I'll just write down little notes so that when I come to it, it doesn't feel hard. It feels easy to be like, right, yeah, I've got these ideas now. And you might prefer not to work like that, but I like working like that. And if I just sit down, I can't really come up with the ideas. I want to have this event in mind that I'm going to work towards and really think about the key things that I'd like to do, because I think the real intentions, the real goals come up in conversations with other people, or when you're reflecting on events of the day. Whereas if you shut down from all that and then you're in between Christmas and New Year and you're like, hang on, let me remember my life again. What's my life like? You need to have the experience, really, don't you? I like to be inspired by the events that are happening around me. So that's just something to bear in mind if you haven't yet planned out 2023, or even if you want to have a bit of a recap on it. We're not talking about reams and reams of paper. It can just be a couple of sentences for who you want to be, a couple of sentences for what you want to have, and a couple of sentences for what you want to do. But start the new year with intention. And I hope that this episode has been really useful and that it's inspired you to make some plans for next year. They don't have to be really rigid plans. But when we set intentions, we're much more likely to actually achieve something more than our peers. So, yeah, I am going to see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Education Business Podcast. To get more information to grow your business, sign up at educationbusinessclub.co.uk.